Hey, how's it going, guys? Stole here with Raised by Sharks, and today we're here to discuss whether or not Anthem has the legs to steal the spotlight from Destiny, Destiny 2, and hold it from The Division, which comes out 1 month later. The looter shooter genre has some of the most hardcore fans of any video game genre out there on the market today. For a long time, Destiny and then in turn Destiny 2 has been the reigning king of this genre, but we think that that might be the end of an era and the start of a new one coming up in these next 2 months. Now, for those of you who played Anthem's demo and weren't impressed, just keep in mind the developers have already spoken about the demo and included a list of things that were changed from that demo to the more recent version of the game, and soon the final version that will release on consoles. The first thing is that voice chat with strangers will be on by default. The second thing is that location statuses for your squad will be way easier to find. That was one of the major problems players had with you couldn't see your teammates, you couldn't tell when they were down, stuff like that. Walking around in Fort Tarsus, the hub world, is way faster. Frame rates will be fixed. Squad leaders can promote other people to squad leader. Inscriptions will display correctly. Primer and detonator abilities will be more clear, be easier to see underwater. One of the new javelins abilities will be unlocked after the game's tutorial. All sorts of stuff like that, including a weapon balance. So as you can see, they're not just going to release a broken game and ignore it, which is my biggest fear with an EA game. So now we're going to get ahead and get into some of the reasons why we think that Anthem can steal the spotlight from Destiny and hold it from the Division 2. And then at the end, we'll talk about why it might not be able to. So at the core of the looter-shooter genre is pretty obviously the loot. The problem with Destiny over the last year and a half to 2 years is that they've been scared to have creative, fun, and powerful loot. The main complaint and criticism for Destiny 2 is that it feels like everybody's shooting pea shooters and that they keep watering down the weapons and making less and less impressive skills. The main problem with the Division was similar, but for a different reason. They weren't scared of their fans having overpowered weapons and saying, "Bungie, please nerf." They were scared of having weapons that were so over the top that it takes you out of the realism world that they developed in New York City. Anthem doesn't suffer from that problem. As you can see here with some of the weapons that I'm going to show you, you have skills that remind you more of the over-the-top talents and skills from Borderlands that kept players coming back over and over looking for better and better gear. This one, for example, explodes when you reload it. There's another one that increases your ability's recharge rate by 50% when you're hovering, which is pretty important because hovering is going to be a big part of the combat, especially for certain classes like the Storm. Another major component to the loot in Anthem, pun intended, is the components page. You could fit 6 components in there, which with the uniqueness and strength of the masterwork abilities and even some of the epic stuff leaves you with a lot of space to be creative and make really strong builds. If you want to be a Storm that focuses on fire abilities, you could do it. If you want to be a Colossus that focuses on tanking and drawing aggro for his team, you can do that. If you want to be a Colossus but instead focus on explosives and demolitioning, you could do that. It leaves you a lot of room to have totally varied loadouts and creativity with your build, as well as gives you a purpose. It leaves that carrot on a stick for you to chase, so that way every time you boot up the game, you never know if you're going to get that really crazy ability or really strong gear that you were looking for, and it makes players want to grind. It brings you back to the Destiny Year 1 days, where even though the loot system wasn't that great before they updated it and made it easier to get loot, every day you booted up the game and you were hoping to get that Galahorn, you were hoping to get that Hunger of Crota, that next super strong weapon that made it worth your time to log in that day. The next thing I want to talk about is the classes. In the Division, you only have one character, and while you have varying different builds between firearms, tank, technician, healer type things, they're all on the same character and really don't vary that much, and the Division also focuses more so than the other two games on the guns themselves. Destiny has 3 separate classes, but for the most part they're not that different. They have different jumping abilities, and that's the biggest difference between the classes, and then they have different supers and grenades. But for the most part, it is a little bit more based around the guns, and the abilities really aren't that different. Even some of the grenades and jumps are shared between classes. Also, to change between a hunter and a warlock in Destiny, you need to totally log out, log back into a new character, and you have to beat the story and level up and grind with a totally new character. Anthem doesn't suffer that problem because you have 4 classes which you can change out at will, and you can change their multiple loadouts between them. So you can have preset loadouts for a Colossus tank, a speedy interceptor, a lightning version of a storm where you focus on full lightning abilities, or if you wanted to, you can go straight up ranger and be somewhere in between, more so Destiny style, where you have a mix of speed, strength, all different abilities, and you focus a little bit more on the guns than the other classes. It's got enough there that every player style and every player build needed for any challenge you can think of is there, and all you have to do is just grind for the loot and make it. That's what makes Anthem so special in my eyes, is that it's got something for everybody. It's got something for, the casual fan that wants to just hop on, shoot some things, log off. It's got something for the fan that wants to grind for that endgame gear and do a really tough challenge. And you can make builds for different things. So let's say you load into a game and you have 3 storms and you know that they're going to get killed quick because they're squishy, and you want a tank for them so that way you can accomplish your goal. You switch to a Colossus build that you have, and it's that quick. The final thing I want to talk about for why I think it could beat out Destiny and the Division is the events. We saw at the end of the open demo they had, people logged in that day and they just saw the skies were glowing red and they wanted to go explore it. You could see that the developers for Anthem are able to change small sections of the environment and the spawns and the loot at will. Whereas in Destiny and the Division, when they wanted to do that, for the most part they waited 3-4 months in between and did big updates. Now towards the later end of Destiny 2's life cycle, more recently, they've been trying to go with smaller, more frequent updates, but they're still not at the speed and scale that we could see Anthem being able to do. Anthem was able to make a small storm that when you went and investigated it, had special monsters and loot available. We think that combined with bigger scale updates will give Anthem the freshness that Destiny and the Division were both lacking. When you combine the loot, the 4 javelins, and the events, it gives players a reason to log in day after day and grind for that next piece of gear that they were looking for. Whereas in Destiny and the Division, we think it'll get staler a little quicker. Now, the main things that Anthem has going against it in this same conversation is the challenges for endgame. They haven't spoken too much about what the raids are going to be, and we're worried there aren't going to be enough strongholds to keep the variety strong. And seeing recently what Division 2 mentioned with the whole Black Tusks invading story missions and invading sections of the Dark Zone, it gives constant freshness for the endgame grind and a lot of challenges for players to grind up for. There's no use in grinding if there's nothing to grind for. So we're worried that the endgame for Anthem isn't going to be strong enough to make players want to grind to get stronger for it. But seeing as how it's a big game and they've been working on it for a really long time and spent tons and tons of money on it and researched the market and having time to examine what Destiny and the Division did wrong, I can't see them excluding some sort of raid and a lot of strongholds and updating them in quickly. It seems like they're aware of the market that they're in and what their predecessors have failed with, and I can't see them just leaving it out. So I'm optimistic for that. The only other thing that we think Anthem doesn't have going for it is an already built up fan base. When Destiny 2 came out, Destiny had been around for a long time. Even if you didn't play Destiny, just it being out there and hearing the name was basically free marketing for Destiny 2. The Division 2 has the same thing. You have tons of fans coming back to those 2 games that already had the first one and are sticking with it, and then also all the people that didn't get the first one that now hear the second one's coming out and are like, oh wow, if it was good enough for a second one, maybe I should give it a try. And the originals are cheap enough now that players will go test them out, say, oh, I like this, and try out the second one. Whereas Anthem, the only chance players have had to see it and feel it in their hands was a short-lived demo. In the end, our conclusion is that Anthem sure has a hill to climb, fighting its way into the looter-shooter genre, but we think it could do it. The reasons that we said earlier in the video for Anthem, we think heavily outweigh the stuff that we said against Anthem. We think that Anthem has what it takes to take the spotlight from Destiny and hold it away from the Division 2 when that comes out 1 month later. Let us know in the comments down below what you think, whether or not you think it could take the spotlight from Destiny, whether you think Destiny even has the spotlight anymore, or whether you think the Division will quickly take it away from it. Thanks for watching Raised by Sharks. Remember to leave a like and subscribe for more.
Well, one person was rezzing and I was trying to just cover because there was a ton of ads spawned right now because the boss is almost dead. So they spawned like extra.
Oh, he spits like a web. Oh, he's dead. I got him with my rockets. Oh, thank God.